My wife left me for her ex after I was hospitalized, and later I destroyed them both. It started with chest pain. Not the kind that shoots like lightning. No, this was a slow, creeping pressure, like someone had laid a brick inside my ribcage and walked away. I was 39, in decent shape, never smoked, rarely drank. Stress? Sure. That I had plenty of. But I didn't think it would send me to the emergency room. I was admitted on a Thursday. My wife, Julia, drove me. She looked concerned, at least, that's what I told myself. But even then, in the haze of pain and fear, something about her expression didn't sit right. Her eyes were distant, hands loose on the wheel like she wasn't really there with me. The tests took a while. EKGs, blood work, scans. The doctors suspected a mild heart attack, but they weren't sure yet. I was hooked up to wires, monitors blinking beside me, and the beeping became the background music of my thoughts. Julia stayed for the first few hours. She brought me water. Scrolled through her phone when the nurses came in. Answered texts too quickly, smiled at messages she never explained. I told myself it was probably work. By evening, she said she needed to go home. Just to get some rest, she said. I'll be back first thing in the morning. I nodded, told her I loved her, and watched her walk out without turning around. She didn't come back the next morning. Or the day after. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe she was busy. Maybe something came up. Maybe she didn't want to see me like that, pale, tired, vulnerable in a hospital gown. But on the third day, I called her. It rang twice, then straight to voicemail. No return text. No missed call. By day 5, the doctors were ready to discharge me. They told me to rest, take it slow, avoid stress. I almost laughed at that last part. My whole life was stress now. I called my brother to pick me up. He didn't ask many questions, just showed up, tossed my bag in the back seat, and drove me home in silence. When we pulled up to the house, something felt off. The porch light was off. The blinds in the living room were drawn. The car wasn't in the driveway. Is she out? My brother asked. I stared at the empty space where her car should have been. Maybe. But I knew. I walked into the house and felt the emptiness like a chill. No shoes by the door. No half-finished coffee mug on the counter. I checked the bedroom. Half the closet was empty. A few drawers open. Her jewelry box was gone. I stood there, holding the closet door like it could explain something. It didn't. Later that night, I found the note. It was short. 4 sentences. Folded on the kitchen table under her keys. I'm sorry. This isn't working anymore. I've gone to stay with someone who understands me. Don't contact me. That was it. No name. No apology that meant anything. Just absence dressed in ink. I sat down in the kitchen chair, her handwriting burning into me like it was carved. My heart wasn't the problem anymore, it was my mind, trying to make sense of how quickly everything had fallen apart. Julia and I had been married for 6 years. Not perfect years, but not empty either. We had history. Shared holidays. Quiet Sunday mornings. Vacations. Laughs. Fights. Reconciliations. But apparently, none of that mattered when someone else made her feel more understood. It took less than 2 weeks to find out who. She hadn't exactly been careful. Or maybe she hadn't cared. Social media left clues, even when you weren't friends anymore. A friend of a friend tagged her in a photo. A backyard party. There she was, curled up on a patio chair next to a man I recognized too well. His name was Owen. Her ex. The one she used to swear she was so glad to be done with. The one who never treated her right, who always made everything about himself. I remember the night she told me all the things she said he'd done: manipulations, lies, control. She cried back then. I held her. And now she had gone back to him. While I lay in a hospital bed wondering if I'd survive the week. It didn't feel real at first. I wanted to believe it was temporary. That she'd come back. That she'd say it was a mistake. But she didn't. Days passed. Then weeks. I stopped expecting her to return. I stopped wanting her to. Anger didn't come all at once. It crept in, the way rot spreads through fruit, quiet, slow, and eventually total. I wasn't angry because she left. I was angry because she left then. At my lowest. When I had nothing. No control. No strength. When she knew I couldn't stop her. That's what broke me. But it also built something else. Something colder. I didn't want revenge, not at first. I wanted distance. Recovery. I started therapy. Got back to work. Reconnected with old friends. I did everything people say you're supposed to do when you're healing. And I was healing. But then I saw them. In a grocery store. Laughing. Holding hands. Like nothing had happened. Like I was just a footnote in a better story they were writing together. That's when something inside me turned. They thought I was done. That I would fade quietly. That I'd let them go on living without consequence. But they were wrong. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't loud. It's calculated. After seeing them in that grocery store, something fundamental inside me shifted. Not a breakdown. Not rage. Just a quiet, focused clarity like the feeling you get when you finally accept that something's broken beyond repair. And instead of crying over it, you start drawing the plans for what comes next. They didn't see me that day. Or maybe they did and didn't care. Either way, they walked out together, shopping bags in hand, smiling, unaware of the way the sight had lit a fuse in my chest. From that moment, I stopped trying to forget. Instead, I started remembering. I remembered how Julia used to sit on the couch at night, texting someone and telling me it was a work thing. How she began putting passwords on her phone. How she spent more time at the gym. How our conversations got shorter, her voice cooler, her presence thinner. All signs. I just hadn't wanted to read them. Now I did. I wasn't planning anything drastic. I wasn't out for blood. But I also wasn't going to let them walk away unscathed, not after the timing, not after the betrayal when I was at my weakest. I started small. Observation. I found out Owen owned a custom auto shop in a warehouse district, small, not flashy, but busy. Through a little browsing online and some casual conversations at local bars, I learned that he'd recently taken on a business loan. Expansion, apparently. Word was, he was stretching thin. Julia, meanwhile, had started working there part-time. Marketing, supposedly. Photos on social media showed her posing beside souped-up cars, hashtagging like her life depended on it. Smiling like she hadn't left me in a hospital bed. I waited. And while I waited, I built my life back piece by piece. I returned to the office. I didn't tell anyone the full story, but people understood enough to keep their pity to themselves. I kept my head down, worked late, and began investing in something I hadn't touched in years, coding. Before I went into finance, I spent time as a back-end developer. It had been nearly a decade, but the fundamentals never left. I brushed up on everything: penetration testing, ethical hacking, social engineering. I wasn't breaking the law. Just preparing for possibilities. I also made a burner profile. Something clean. Anonymous. I used it to follow Julia's new life. Not obsessively. Just enough to track her patterns. Where she went. Who she tagged. Which accounts commented. I began to build a map of her world, one that revolved around Owen, his shop, and a growing network of influencers and gearheads. One day, I noticed something interesting. She'd started promoting a new service Owen was offering: custom diagnostic tuning software. Something flashy to attract wealthier clients. The platform was supposedly proprietary. The posts bragged about revolutionary engine management tools. But the screenshots they shared told me something else. They were cutting corners. I recognized the code structure from an open-source tuning framework I used years ago. They'd clearly repackaged it and slapped a logo on it. That alone wasn't illegal. But the way they were selling it as exclusive, unique, self-developed was. I filed that knowledge away. Didn't act on it. Not yet. Instead, I made a friend. There's a guy named Jay who reviews car mods on YouTube, mid-sized following, very opinionated, respected in that community. I reached out anonymously, using the burner profile. Told him I was a software engineer and that Owen's new system looked awfully familiar. I didn't have to push hard. Within a week, Jay made a video. It wasn't an attack, just a curious observation comparing the tuning software Owen was selling to the open-source platform. He did a side-by-side breakdown. Left the conclusion up to the audience. The reaction was swift. Forums lit up. Questions started flooding Owen's business page. Comments went from enthusiastic to skeptical. A few bigger names started echoing Jay's concerns. The algorithm did the rest. Julia stopped posting for a few days. Then she came back with a vague, upbeat caption about rising above the noise. Owen didn't respond at all. I didn't stop. I found the vendor who originally published the open source framework. Small company, based out of Colorado. I emailed them, included links to Owen's website and the video. Didn't accuse. Just informed. They responded 3 days later. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. We are initiating a formal inquiry. After that, I waited again. Meanwhile, I lived my life like nothing was happening. I went out. Joined a gym. Started seeing people socially again. I wasn't dating, not yet, but I wasn't hiding either. I laughed more. Ate better. Slept through the night. I was healing, truly healing, but not passively. Julia and Owen had taught me that trust is not something to give away cheaply. So I stopped giving it away at all. And still, a part of me stayed locked on them. Not in a vengeful way. Just in a calculated, methodical awareness. They hadn't just betrayed me. They'd tried to erase me. But you can't erase someone who knows how to write his name in fire. And the flames were coming. I didn't expect things to unravel so quickly after the inquiry email went out. But then again, I'd underestimated just how careless Owen really was. 2 weeks after I tipped off the original software developer, they went public with their findings. A short post on their official site, shared across their socials. It has come to our attention that a certain commercial automotive tuning software is using large portions of our open source framework without proper credit, licensing, or attribution. We are currently pursuing legal action. They didn't name Owen outright, but everyone in the car modding world knew exactly who they meant. Within hours, screenshots of Julia's promotional posts and Owen's product pages started circulating on forums and Reddit. People were connecting the dots. It got worse fast. Clients began backing out. A few influencers who had endorsed the product deleted their posts. Refund requests piled up. Then, a former employee of Owen's made a now-deleted comment on one of the threads, claiming he had warned the boss about this months ago and was told to keep quiet and cash his checks. It didn't take long for someone to archive it. The shop's rating on review sites started to tank. Negative reviews rolled in, some legit, others opportunistic. The business wasn't just losing money. It was losing trust. And Julia? She went silent online for a full week. Then, quietly, her name disappeared from the business website. That was confirmation enough. I wasn't surprised when I got a message from a mutual acquaintance, a guy named Thomas we'd both known through work years ago. Hey, the message read. I don't know what happened between you and Julia, but, yeah. I thought you should know she's saying she had no idea about the software stuff. That she's distancing herself from Owen. I just replied, thanks. The story was predictable. Julia had a history of stepping away when things got hard. When it became clear the business might collapse, she did what she'd always done, cut herself loose and floated away. But not before trying to save her image. A few days later, she posted a long message on her personal page. I want to be transparent with all of you. I was not involved in the technical side of the business and was unaware of any licensing issues. I've stepped away to focus on my own career path and well-being. I appreciate your support during this time. It was polished. Vague. Safe. She didn't mention Owen by name. No apology. No ownership. Just the kind of damage control that looks honest from a distance. But I knew better. And so did a lot of others. Because around that same time, someone unearthed a podcast episode she had been on just 2 months earlier, an episode where she gushed about how involved she was in every level of the business, including product branding and feature development. The clip was about 20 seconds long. It spread like wildfire. Someone stitched it next to a quote from her latest post, calling it the fastest backpedal in auto shop history. It got reposted. Mocked. Clipped again. Her follower count dropped steadily. Suddenly, she wasn't just irrelevant. She was exposed. I didn't gloat. I didn't say a word. I just watched. And somewhere in all that, I started to feel lighter. Not because I had hurt her. but because the truth had done it for me. I hadn't had to yell. I hadn't had to throw anything. I hadn't even needed to talk to her. All I did was shine a light. That was enough. But Owen? He was another story. One morning, I drove by his shop. It was open. Fewer cars out front. The parking lot quieter. I didn't stop, I wasn't there to confront anyone. I just needed to see it. Needed the physical proof that what I'd done had real-world impact. That afternoon, I got an email from the legal team of the software company. They thanked me briefly, formally. Then they added something that caught my eye. If you're willing, we'd like to ask a few technical questions related to the documentation you provided. Your insights could be helpful in the pending case. I responded yes. Not because I wanted to insert myself into it for recognition, but because I knew Owen. And I knew he wouldn't back down easily. Not unless someone held him in place. I spent the next week compiling everything I'd found: timestamps, source code similarities, screenshots of Julia's marketing claims, quotes from his sales pitches. I put it all in a document. Sent it off. It was no longer about revenge. It was about accountability. Owen had built his house on stolen work, inflated promises, and public perception. Now the walls were coming down, and the wind was full of receipts. Meanwhile, I began to build something of my own. I started writing. Nothing fancy. Just a blog, initially anonymous, where I documented the process of recovery not just from heartbreak, but from betrayal. From learning how to trust yourself again after someone else's choices derailed your life. People started reading it. Then sharing it. I got messages from strangers, men and women, who had gone through something similar. Some had been cheated on. Some had been abandoned during illness. Some just needed to hear that someone had stood up, quietly, and said, "I survived." I didn't share names. I didn't tell them exactly what I'd done. But I told them the truth, that healing doesn't always come from forgiveness. Sometimes, it comes from drawing lines. From saying, no more. From refusing to let betrayal be the final word in your story. And slowly, the narrative stopped being about Julia or Owen at all. It became mine again. I hadn't seen Julia in person since the day she left me in the hospital. Not really. A glimpse in a grocery store didn't count, not when I didn't speak, didn't move, didn't let her see that I saw her. But months later, when all the dust had settled, it finally happened. I was having coffee with a colleague in a quiet cafe near downtown. It was late morning, calm, not busy. I was mid-sentence when the door chimed and I looked up. There she was. Hair longer, styled different. Wearing a blazer like she was trying to project something: professionalism, stability, control. But I saw the flicker in her eyes when they landed on me. Recognition. Regret. Something close to fear. I didn't flinch. I didn't turn away. She approached slowly, cautiously, like someone checking if the fire they started had finally gone out. "Hey," she said, standing by my table. "Can we talk?" I looked at my colleague, then back at her. "Give me 5?" I asked him. He stood, nodded, and stepped outside with his coffee. Julia sat down across from me like it hurt. "I didn't think I'd run into you," she said. "I live here. This is where I've always been." She winced. Whether at my tone or the truth in it, I didn't care. "I've heard things," she said carefully. "About the business. About Owen. You heard them or lived them?" She hesitated. I laughed. "I know. She stopped, looked down at her hands. "I didn't mean to hurt you the way I did. You didn't just hurt me, Julia. You abandoned me. When I was in a hospital bed. That's not something you apologize away in a coffee shop." Her eyes filled with something that looked like guilt. But I didn't trust it. "I was confused," she said quietly. "No. You were clear. Crystal clear. You said you were going to someone who understood you. That was a choice, not confusion." She looked away. I leaned back. Calm. Measured. "What happened between you and Owen?" She hesitated again, then said, "He lied. About more than just the software. About money. About people. About what we were building. He used me." I wanted to laugh, but I didn't. "Like you used me?" She didn't answer. I gave everything, I continued. And the second I couldn't give anymore, when I needed something back, you disappeared. Not slowly. Not with warning. You just vanished. Her eyes were wet now. I wondered if the tears were for me or for herself. I made a mistake, she whispered. No. You revealed something. That silence after my words, that was real. She didn't ask for forgiveness. I think she knew it wasn't coming. She didn't ask to reconnect, or talk more, or make amends. All she said was, I hope you're okay now. I nodded. I am. That was it. She stood. Walked out. Didn't look back this time either. But I did. And what I saw was someone unraveling, no longer held together by borrowed confidence or other people's applause. Just someone who thought she could leap to a better life and ended up falling into herself. She hadn't come to apologize. She had come to see if I was still broken. And I wasn't. Not even close. Later that week, I got an email from a podcast host who had read one of my blog entries. She ran a series focused on real-life recovery stories, people who rebuilt their lives after betrayal, illness, disaster. She asked if I'd be willing to speak on record. At first, I said no. But after some thought, I agreed. When I sat down in front of the mic, I didn't name anyone. I didn't even go into detail. But I spoke honestly about the weight of abandonment, the kind that doesn't come with slamming doors or loud fights, but silence. I spoke about how hard it is to rebuild trust after you've been treated like something disposable. How healing isn't always pretty. Sometimes, it's rage you don't express. Sometimes, it's silence you keep. Sometimes, it's waking up and choosing not to look back. That episode got more downloads than expected. People wrote in dozens, then hundreds. Some told their own stories. Some just thanked me for saying what they'd been too ashamed to admit. I never asked for that platform. But somehow, it became part of what I was meant to do. Meanwhile, Owen's business was closing in on collapse. The lawsuit went forward. Settled out of court, according to public filings. But the damage was irreversible. His name became poison in the modding world. Every vendor dropped him. Former clients went to competitors. He tried to launch a rebrand under a new name, no traction. Eventually, the shop closed. Julia vanished from public view soon after. Her pages were scrubbed. She disappeared from the search results, like a ghost wiping away its footprints. As for me, I was still standing. Still working. Still writing. Still building. One quiet night, months later, I got a message from someone I didn't expect. A woman who had once worked at Owen's shop. Someone who had watched everything go down, quietly. She wrote, I just wanted to say thank you. No one ever took people like him to task. You didn't scream. You didn't post long rants. You just let truth do the work. And maybe that was it. Maybe I hadn't destroyed them, exactly. Maybe I had just stopped protecting them from the consequences they thought would never come. By the time fall came, it had been nearly a year since the hospital. I didn't mark the anniversary. There was no need. My body had healed. My anger had cooled. And the woman who once swore to love me through anything was now a stranger in the city, her name no longer tethered to mine in conversation or memory. I still passed by places that reminded me of her, our old Thai restaurant, the bookstore where she used to browse but never buy anything, the trail near the lake where we walked on Sundays. But they didn't sting anymore. They were just places now. I didn't avoid them. I reclaimed them. That's what healing looked like in the end, not forgetting, but detaching. Meanwhile, my blog had turned into something more. I started writing regularly. I even gave it a name, break//rebuild. It became a small hub for people like me, men and women who had gone through quiet, private forms of betrayal and refused to let it define the rest of their lives. And every once in a while, I'd get a message that made it all feel worthwhile. Reading this helped me leave him. I thought I was crazy until I read your story. Thank you for reminding me that silence can be strength. It was never about revenge. Not really. That part had burned out long ago. It was about truth. Mine. And theirs. Owen had sold off his shop equipment in an auction. I saw the photos online. Rusting lifts, empty oil drums, stripped down office chairs. The shell of something once presented as untouchable. I didn't feel joy when I saw it. Just finality. And Julia? I never heard from her again after that last cafe encounter. Someone told me she moved, maybe to another city, maybe to a different version of herself. I don't know. And honestly, I didn't care. Because life had started again. Not with fireworks or dramatic new love or some cinematic comeback. Just quiet mornings, meaningful work, friendships that didn't ask me to shrink. And then, eventually, something unexpected. I met someone. Not through a dating app. Not at a party. Just real life at the local bookstore, ironically enough. Her name was Elise. She was soft-spoken, but not timid. Kind in a way that didn't feel performative. We bumped into each other, literally, when I turned a corner too fast, book in hand. She laughed. I apologized. We ended up talking in the aisle for 20 minutes. It wasn't instant fireworks. It was a conversation that lingered. The next week, I saw her again. We talked more. Then coffee. Then dinners. Then long walks where neither of us had to fill the silence. Eventually, she asked, gently, what happened before? And I told her. Not all at once. But enough. She listened without interrupting. No judgment. No wide-eyed sympathy. Just presence. That must have changed you, she said. It did, I answered. And now? I thought about it. Then I said something I hadn't realized until the words left my mouth. Now I know who I am without anyone else holding the pen. She smiled. Good. You write well. It's been 2 years since Julia left. 1 year since the fallout. 6 months since Elise and I started something new. I don't measure my worth through someone else's eyes anymore. I don't wonder if I was ever enough. Because I was. The truth is, the destruction wasn't just theirs. It was mine, too. I destroyed the old version of me, the one who tolerated distance in the name of love, who overlooked small betrayals out of fear of loneliness. And in that wreckage, I built something honest. Solid. Mine. So no, I didn't get even with them. I just outlived the lie. And I didn't do it loudly. I did it standing still, while the fire burned out around me. Thank you for watching the video. Like it if you watched the video to the end and don't forget to subscribe. Have a nice day.